Have you ever been asked for a huge favor and said no, and then felt almost relieved when the person followed up with a smaller request? If so, you might have experienced something called the door-in-the-face technique. This is a psychological tactic where someone starts with an overly large or unreasonable request, something they know you'll probably say no to. Once you reject it, they follow up with a smaller, more reasonable request. Because you already said no to the big ask, you're more likely to say yes to the smaller one. Let me give you a quick example. Majin, a coworker, asks if you can take over their entire project for the week while they're on vacation. It's a huge ask, so you say no. Then, they follow up with, "Okay, no problem. Could you just cover one meeting for me on Thursday?" Compared to the first request, the second one seems much more manageable. You've already said no once, so you feel a little guilty, and you're more likely to agree to the smaller favor. That's the door-in-the-face technique at work. The door-in-the-face technique works because it plays on our desire to be helpful and our tendency to feel guilty after saying no. Once we've rejected a big request, the smaller one feels like a compromise. The key is to recognize when this tactic is being used. If you feel like you're being manipulated into saying yes, it's okay to pause and think about what you're comfortable with. You don't have to agree to something just because it's smaller than the original request. Remember, it's your time and energy. Use it wisely. Have you ever agreed to a small request only to find yourself saying yes to something much bigger later? If so, you might have experienced something called the foot-in-the-door technique. This is a psychological tactic where someone starts with a small, easy-to-agree-to request, and once you say yes, they gradually escalate to larger, more demanding requests. The idea is that once you've committed to the small thing, you're more likely to keep saying yes to avoid feeling inconsistent. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine a neighbor asks if you can water their plants while they're away for the weekend. It's a small favor, so you say yes. A few days later, they ask if you can also collect their mail and feed their cat. Since you've already agreed to help, you feel obligated to say yes again. Before you know it, they're asking you to house sit for a week. What started as a simple favor has turned into a much bigger commitment, all because of that first small yes. That's the foot-in-the-door technique in action. The foot-in-the-door technique works because it plays on our desire to be consistent. Once we've committed to something small, it's harder to say no to bigger requests. The key is to be aware of this tactic. If you feel like you're being nudged into bigger commitments, it's okay to pause and reassess. You're not obligated to keep saying yes just because you agreed to something small. Remember, it's your time and energy. Use it wisely. Have you ever been in a situation where someone made you doubt your own memory or sanity? Maybe they denied something you know happened, or they twisted the truth to make you feel like you were overreacting. If so, you might have experienced something called gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where someone tries to make you question your own reality. They might deny facts, dismiss your feelings, or even blame you for things that aren't your fault. Over time, this can leave you feeling confused, isolated, and like you can't trust yourself. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine you're in a relationship and your partner says something hurtful during an argument. Later, when you bring it up, they deny it ever happened. They say, "I never said that. You're making it up. You know what you heard." But they're so convincing that you start to doubt yourself. Maybe you did mishear them. Maybe you are overreacting. Then they twist it further. They say, "You're always so sensitive. You're the one causing problems here." Now, not only are you doubting your memory, but you're also starting to feel like you're the problem. That's gaslighting. Gaslighting is dangerous because it's hard to recognize. It often starts small, but over time, it can erode your confidence and sense of reality. If this sounds familiar, I want you to know this. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting. Trust your instincts. Keep a journal if you need to, so you can remind yourself of what really happened. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, a family member, or a professional. Remember, your reality is valid. You deserve to be treated with respect and honesty. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. Have you ever met someone who swept you off your feet right from the start? They showered you with attention, compliments, and gifts, making you feel like the most special person in the world. It felt amazing, didn't it? But what if I told you that this overwhelming affection could sometimes be a tactic called love bombing? Love bombing is when someone overwhelms you with excessive attention, affection, and grand gestures, often too much, too soon. While it can feel flattering at first, it's sometimes used to manipulate or control you. The goal is to make you feel deeply connected to them quickly, so you're more likely to overlook red flags or tolerate unhealthy behavior later. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine you start dating someone new. Within days, they're texting you constantly, saying things like, "I've never felt this way about anyone before," or "You're perfect for me." They send you flowers, plan extravagant dates, and introduce you to their friends and family as the one. At first, it feels incredible, but over time, you notice that their intense affection comes with expectations. They want all your time and attention, and if you try to set boundaries, they guilt trip you or act hurt. What felt like love at first now feels suffocating. That's love bombing. Love bombing isn't always intentional or malicious. Sometimes people just get carried away in the excitement of a new relationship. But when it's used manipulatively, it can be a red flag for controlling behavior. The key is to pay attention to the pace of the relationship. Healthy love grows gradually, with mutual respect and space for boundaries. If someone's affection feels overwhelming or too good to be true, take a step back. Trust your instincts. Remember, you deserve a love that's genuine, respectful, and balanced, not one that feels like a whirlwind designed to sweep you off your feet. Have you ever met someone who just gets you? Someone who seems to share your interests, your sense of humor, even your mannerisms? It feels like you've known them forever, right? Well, sometimes that connection isn't as natural as it seems. It might be a psychological tactic called mirroring. Mirroring is when someone subtly imitates your behavior, speech, or body language to build rapport and trust. It's a way of saying, "We're alike, you can trust me." And honestly, it's not always a bad thing. In fact, mirroring happens naturally in healthy relationships. It's how we bond with others. But here's the thing. Mirroring can also be used manipulatively. Some people use it to gain your trust quickly, often with ulterior motives. They might mimic your tone of voice, repeat your words, or even adopt your hobbies to make you feel like you found a kindred spirit. Imagine you're at a coffee shop and someone strikes up a conversation. You mention you love reading, and suddenly they say, "Oh, I'm a huge bookworm too." They start using phrases like, "I totally get what you mean," and even mimic your tone of voice. At first, it feels like you found a kindred spirit. But later, you realize they don't actually read much at all. They were just mirroring you to create a connection, maybe to sell you something or gain your approval. Mirroring isn't always a bad thing. It's how we bond with others. But when it's used manipulatively, it can feel unsettling. The key is to trust your instincts. Real connections take time and honesty. So, the next time someone feels like your mirror image, ask yourself, is this genuine, or is it just a reflection of what I want to see?